Alrighty. Welcome back, everyone. So it's been a few weeks since my last stream because we had to take my toddler to the emergency room like 2-3 weeks ago. I think he was fine, but we ended up staying there all night. And then that kind of just threw my perfectly balanced schedule for a loop. And then work got pretty busy, so I was having to work overtime. I didn't have to work overtime, but I had a project that was exciting and wanted to get it done, but I'm mostly done with that now. That's in code review, so life's kind of getting back to normal. So I figured I would go for it. But I didn't actually intend on pressing the start streaming button. So we're just going to run with what we have. I hope I have audio. So, a lot has happened since last stream. I'm working on a vertical slice for the game I'm making, so I want to try to capture the hype, to have something that I can actually show and generate some views for. Trying to catch the dark fantasy wave because the FOMO is absolutely killing me. I've been probably since like July or something of last year, but working on a shader so that I can try to replicate a look of an AI generated dark fantasy picture on Pinterest. Let me show you that here. I saw this picture. I think it's AI generated. Apologies if it isn't, but it has all the hallmarks. Namely his 3 fingers. I saw this a while ago, I don't even know when, and I decided to completely pivot and make a shader that can replicate this kind of look. So I've been working on that for a year, and I've just started working on my game a couple months ago maybe. And of course, the internet has now caught up onto the same Pinterest vibe that I caught up on, and now people are going crazy for a bunch of like dark fantasy-esque vibe games, and I knew it was only a matter of time. And I'm not claiming that I knew dark fantasy before it was cool. I saw the same Pinterest memes everyone else did, and AI generated stuff as everybody else, but I have extreme FOMO. So what I'm trying to do is get something that I can actually show that looks cool by like the end of the month, middle of September. So I'm working on today fleshing out the mock-up for the UI, so I actually have things wired up, and then I'm going to go all into asset generation just to add some nice images, and then get like, instead of just these gray ImGui panels, get some actual professional looking UI done, and then have enough assets so that a small tiny little bit of gameplay can be shown. So that's the goal. Now, today, for the last couple of days, I've been working on learning ImGui. I've never been very good at it, but I've dived in wholesale now to try to understand what's going on so I can make the mock-up. And the best thing ever happened. So, probably a couple weeks ago, a month ago maybe, my husband said that he was going to throw in the towel on the game engine. And I think I've talked about that in other streams, but we've been working on this together for years and years and years, but he just got burnt out. I think we have a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old, and so trying to manage that, and it can be a lot. So he's taken a step back. So I've been soldiering on ahead, but there is so much that he knows about programming that I don't know. He's like the C++ guy, and I'm just perpetually learning C++, and whenever I have a question I can ask him. And he's done all of the heavy lifting of the engine. I've done all of the graphics stuff. Not that graphics isn't heavy lifting, but that's primarily been my focus, but he's done all of the ECS, and he wrote his own physics engine, for crying out loud. But now we're not using that, we're using Jolt. But it was perfectly fine. It was a working physics engine. It just didn't have wheel physics, which we did for a game we were working on. But anyway, back to the good part. So last week or something, he said, you know what, I would love to help you write networking for the game. And so in like 2 days, he got all of the networking hookups for the game that we're making, and he's like, yeah, here you go. Took him what would have taken me literally 3 or 4 months to do poorly, he did in a couple days. A lot of it he copied over from previous game, but now he's like fleshing out the back end and all the interactions, and it's just amazing. I had no idea who was going to do that, so that was really, really, really fortunate. Okay, so I'll show you what we've got here. I'm going after like a Elder Scrolls Daggerfall or Arena or like Ultima look, where you have like your eye icon and you've got your like, I'm not going to have this because I don't need it for my game, but like you have your up, down, left, right controls here in a panel, and you've got your little squad here, and then your game is just in a small window. So that's what I've got, what I'm trying to target here. And specifically today, we need to get image support into ImGui. And if you can see, you might be confused because I have images in ImGui right here, because yesterday I coded up a really simple way to get image support in ImGui, and then went to go add an overload and realized that I'm going to have add an overload for every single type of ImGui thing that I want to have an add an image to. And then my husband said, well, why don't you just do it this other way, which was really smart. So I reverted that PR and I'm doing it the other way. Okay, so probably going to spend the next 30 minutes finishing up getting ImGui image support in the engine, and then I'm going to cut back over to the mockup. So if you guys don't know, ImGui is an immediate mode GUI. We're using Deer ImGui. And if you've ever wondered what an immediate mode GUI is, you can think about a lot of applications that have UIs will have like state. So you can think about, like if you think about Windows Forms, which is what I do for my day job, you're going to have a form class, and then inside of the form you might have buttons, and they're all initialized at in order. So like you construct your form, you construct your buttons, you construct your controls, your user controls, etc. And they all have state, and they're all in this kind of hierarchy. Well, ImGui doesn't work that way. ImGui, imagine it as a stack, and you can literally just push right now on the current frame something to draw, and then at the end of the frame you stop drawing it. So every frame it's like push a panel, push on top of the panel a button, push on top of the button some text, push on top of the, well, I don't think you have anything on text, maybe push on top of the button an image, and that's what, and then at the end of the frame you pop it, and so you're literally building up your UI every frame. So it's really, really easy to do because it's, you don't have to think about the implications of like passing data or the lifetime of the controls, because it's all, the scope is so short. But I think people say typically ImGui isn't a good solution for professional, or not professional, but like what am I trying to say, like polished AAA game UI. You wouldn't use ImGui, but I'm going to because it's the fastest option. But ImGui is fantastic for, like, think about an editor in the game. Like, I can show you ours if we're building. I don't think we're building. This is an old build, but this is like classic ImGui. You got your panels, you've got some lists, you got selectables, you have panels that pop up. But what you don't typically see is like well, actually that could very well have been done in ImGui. I'm trying to think of like a, I don't know. But we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna contort ImGui to our own will, simply because it's already integrated into the engine and you can add images to your panels, and that's all I need. So ImGui right now, we don't have a way to go from, well, we didn't have a way to go from our texture. So if you think about a texture, you have some kind of file on the file system, you need to get it into some kind of format that you can recognize. So it's usually just like through some means or other, you're getting the raw bytes that represent the data in the picture. And then you load that into RAM, CPU RAM, and then you can load that into GPU RAM. And then you need some kind of handle to the GPU RAM so that you can interact with the texture, either in a shader or in your application code. So then ImGui just takes a pointer to that handle on the GPU and casts it to some kind of ImGui type. And that's really all you need. But there's a little bit of trickiness trying to go from here's my index into my descriptor on the GPU, and here is my ImGui type, especially because we're trying to keep a separation between the graphics library implementation and the interface of the engine. So we don't want someone to have to be dependent on Diligent Graphics, for example, which is the graphics rendering layer that we're using. It's like an abstraction layer that's very cool, but we don't want you to have to do that if you just want to pull in the engine and implement your own graphics library. All you have to do is actually, you know what? I'm going to make sure my stream is actually running, because this is just my second time streaming to YouTube and I'm not getting... Okay, it looks like it is. Sweet. Cool. Okay, for if you want to create a graphics module to use in our engine, all you have to do is create a class that derives from module, and then you just need to have all of these things implemented. And we don't want any implementation detail types to leak into this. So I've added a new class, and this is all about how to get images, basically get a handle to the view into the texture that you've uploaded on the GPU so that ImGui can draw it. So I've added a new class called get texture view, and I've added a new type called texture view type, because typically you would just want asset textures. So things like if you upload a picture of a card for a card game, that's just an asset. But I was thinking the way that I'm doing the viewport is a little bit weird. And going back to the game, I don't think that most people do this when they're doing ImGui the way that I did it. So this is my first like major work with ImGui. So I have a window here, and a window here, and a window here, and a window here. And this is just the negative space. The viewport is just the negative space where I don't have any windows. And I was learning after I did this that generally what people do is this would also be a window, and then what you're actually rendering here every frame is just the off-screen image buffer that we then blit to the swap chain. You just instead render that to an ImGui frame or an ImGui image class. So we actually already we have this in an off-screen texture. So I thought if I want to later, if there are some benefits in doing so, I might want to capture the color sync, which is what I've called the off-screen texture buffer. So I decided then to add all of the parts, because maybe I want to have now that I have all this viewport power, maybe I want to have a debug window in the engine that shows me what my shadow map looks like for either point shadows or uni shadows. So that's just what texture view type is. And then this get texture view takes a texture view type and an index, and all it does is it returns a void pointer, which is in our Diligent layer class. So this is like deep into the graphics stuff. What am I looking for here? We have a shader resource view here, and oh, here it is in the header. What I do is I just return the shader resource view, which is just a pointer to an iDevice object. And then I'm going to cast that to an iTexture view. And then cast that, which I might be able to skip the cast to the iTexture view. I'm not sure yet. But then cast that to an ImGui handle. Why, I can't remember what it's called. So that's the plan. So then if we look back at graphics impl, there's just a class that's going to say go into basically this shader bindings is like the manifest for all of our GPU resources, and get the texture view at whatever, for whatever, if you want shadows or color sync depth syncs through the assets, just get the texture view at that index, cast it to a const void pointer, return it. And so then how I'm going to use this in a scene, and so then any consumers of the engine would be able to have this interface. This is the engine's public interface, which is here. Anyone that wants to use this can just go and say something along the lines of ImGui image, and then what do I call it? Oh, you're in the widget class. I see. Oh no. Well, I'll solve that problem in a second. I don't have a so say I wasn't in a free function right now, I could just say underscore graphics, or what did I call it, in C graphics, and then go to get texture view, and I'm going to call this, we can go to our asset layer, which would be something like sample texture, and these are the texture views, not this kind of texture view, but the asset texture view that has the index into the GPU handles. Let's call it the diffuse texture for the skeleton, just as a demo. And then what we need to do is cast to, what is it? I have to pull up my old branch where I did it the other way here to remember what it was called. ImTexture ID. Now I might need to first cast this to a diligent no, I don't think I do. Then ImVec to 500. So that is the theory here. But now we have another wrinkle, which is this widget. The widget needs to be a void parameterless func, and I need to pass NC graphics into it, which is our module that contains the method I was trying to call, the get texture view. And I don't have this problem in the game because I didn't design it this way. Just look, not exactly sure. So set widget callback. That is a bummer. How is he getting anything from his scene into the widget to render? That's what I have to figure out. What happens if I just do? I don't think this is going to work. I'm going to try it anyway. It seems like a bad idea. Hi, welcome. So I am currently working on mocking up the UI for my game. I can make that text a little bit bigger. How's that? Working on mocking up the UI for a game that I'm working on. Yeah, I can explain. So I'll show you here. I've been working on making a networked fantasy card game that's going to be like retro and nostalgic from everything I loved about being in the 90s. So I'm working on that now, but my current mission is to try to get image support into ImGui. ImGui is like an immediate mode GUI we use in our engine, Dear ImGui, which is probably, I think it's the most popular one. But I'm trying to get image support. And if you're confused here, you can see I already have images in ImGui because 2 days ago I came up with a really naive way to get images into ImGui. And then I realized in order to support that, I'm going to have to add an overload in the engine for every single type of ImGui thing, basically a wrapper for every ImGui thing that supports images. So ImGui image, ImGui button, ImGui image with a color, ImGui button with a color, ImGui image with text, etc. And then my husband, who's the other person that I work on this with, suggested that I go about it a different way, which was instead of just having a class that wraps ImGui but also gets our data type, easier way to say that is we try to maintain a separation in our, I can show you actually. I was explaining this to nobody because my stream was empty like 15 minutes ago, so anyone that's watching the recording, my apologies. But we have the way our engine is designed is we have a kind of an idea of modules. So we have interfaces for the modules. And so if you want to create a different graphics library than the one that we ship with, for example, you don't have to use our version of NC Graphics. Oh, you are? Oh, nice. Maybe you can help me because Cal, my husband, has been doing most of the ImGui stuff, and so this is my first foray into ImGui. But we didn't have image support in ImGui because we just have never tried before. And my first go around was to try to maintain this separation of the interfaces for the modules for the engine must not know anything about the graphics API, so it shouldn't have any Vulkan specific types, or in our case we're now using a library called Diligent. Shouldn't know anything about Diligent because you shouldn't be dependent on Vulkan if you want to implement just this basic interface. You should only have to know these like simple wrapper types. Because what if you want a DirectX 11 graphics library, for example? So anyway, the way I did it before was naive, so I ended up rolling that back instead of every day coming and adding a new wrapper. So then he suggested, why don't I just get the handle, which is a diligent type, to our image, where we're storing it on the GPU, to the index of the image in our descriptor set. Just return that as a void pointer, because underneath the hood it's a diligent I texture view. Cast it as a void pointer, and then anyone that calls this will get the correct handle, and then they can just cast it back to whatever type they need. Yeah, the modularity has been working for us, so it was pretty cool. We started with NC Graphics 1, and NC Graphics 1 was an interface I wrote. Oh, actually, technically that was NC Graphics 2. NC Graphics 1 was actually in DirectX 11, but the one that and Cal wrote that, but I wrote the Vulkan library, and that was what we actually call NC Graphics. And then now I've rewritten it with like a diligent abstraction layer, and then we call that Graphics 2. But yeah, if you want to come in and you want the engine, but you hate the way that I've implemented graphics, which I wouldn't be surprised because there's some crazy things in there, then you can just create a new module, call it whatever you want. It just has to inherit from NC Graphics and implement all these endpoints. Or not endpoints, I'm not in my day job. Implement all these methods. Okay, so if we jump back here, I just haven't pulled the new build of the engine since I reverted this change. So my mission today is to try to get ImGui image support the proper way. And is it easier to see the code now? I'm going to assume it is. Let's see. So I think that this approach is going to work. My only problem is we have 3 scenes in our sample that we ship with the engine. And the way that we invoke the UI is through this widget callback. But the problem is the widget callback is a void parameterless function object. So I can't pass the graphics module into it, and I need the graphics module to call my new get texture view. So now I'm experimenting with really weird crap because I just want to test that this is working correctly, because I don't have the same function object. It needs to be parameterless constraint in the game that I'm working on. This is just in our sample. Okay, let's see. Image. So I need to get NC Graphics, and I've never done this before, but I have my doubts that it's going to work, but G, let's see, oh, where did I put it? Oh my god. Did I put it in a different scene? I did. Okay. So the scene already has a pointer to the NC graphics module, and I'm trying to see if I make a global NC graphics just for the sake of testing this. Will that actually work? We shall see. Okay, so hey, leave. Yeah, it's ImGui is, once it's all set up, it's easy to use, but the whole, like, so we had to do like the ImGui Vulkan impl and get all of that wired up initially for Vulkan, and now the library we're using now, which is Diligent, which I highly recommend. I'm a massive Diligent shill because they're so cool, but they have their own ImGui Diligent backend, and trying to get all of that figured out is really confusing. Okay, so leave, we're doing some UI stuff today, and specifically what I'm trying to do is get ImGui image support in the game engine so that I can get closer to my UI mockup that I have over here that I made in Photoshop. So I has, oh, didn't I decide I was just, oh my gosh, I think I thought I was just going to put it in here and I didn't even need to do anything in the physics test. Goodness sakes, you guys. So I haven't streamed in a couple of weeks because, well, we had to take my toddler to the ER a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago I think now, for his leg, and it turned out he was perfectly fine, but they thought he might have a hip infection. And that ended up, that was a Wednesday night of a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks I think. And so then we ended up getting there at maybe 6 o'clock p.m. and then hanging out at the ER until 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I had to work the next day, which I ended up taking most of the day off, but you can't take a day off with toddlers. And I feel like our margin for like trying to get done everything we're trying to get done is so thin that that single all-nighter just absolutely rocked my schedule. But it has been at least 2 weeks, I'm pretty sure, so I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. Okay, I don't actually need to do anything in this scene. I am just going to put it right in the sample UI. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't do this in the first place, because this already has a pointer to NC graphics. It's right here. Oh, you are! Okay. I was talking on stream earlier when I was by myself about... So I want to show you this because I didn't realize that rendering just like the off-screen buffer into an ImGui image was a thing. So you would think that that's what I'm doing here. But like I have off-screen render targets and everything already figured out and implemented. So what you see here is I'm rendering all of my normals and everything to an off-screen render target, my scene to an off-screen render target, and passing it down a chain of post-process effects. And then I take that and I blit it to the swap chain, and then this is just the viewport and the scissor. So I'm not actually, instead of splitting it to an ImGui image, which apparently is what the rest of the world does, I just made the viewport fit this exact rectangle. And then I built windows around it. That can't be the way Oh, no, maybe I'm reading what you said wrong, Luca. Maybe that's what you're doing too. Yeah, I think we're doing the same thing. But apparently, you can take your off-screen render target and then every frame you just render it into an ImGui image, and you can then have like, you don't have to make a negative space of not having ImGui. You can have the whole thing be ImGui, and then I'm sure you could make use of tables and alignment and all of that wonderful stuff. But that is not the path that I chose. Okay, so I'm trying to test if my image idea is going to work. So we're in the sample UI. I'm just taking a random asset, which is our skeleton diffuse map, and trying to cast it to an ImTexture 2D from a void pointer. How are we building right now? I don't even know. Oh. Okay, we want the texture type, which would be, you can see texture view type, and it's a texture view type of asset. So Cal did this feature, and this is the coolest thing ever. So when we convert whatever texture file, whatever asset we're doing, when we convert it into the NCA format, which is our like custom asset format, he wrote this code that all you have to do is then run this generator, which is part of our conversion tool, and it's going to generate the C++ for like actually creating an instance of your texture and an instance of your asset and the texture view and everything. So all you have to do is run the generator, and then you can just go into your namespace and say, I want the view for whatever the name of your texture was, and it is the most useful feature ever. Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, I probably will end up doing it in a more traditional way here. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's where I'm at right now. What are you? Oh. Now I've got to pull up what I was working on. So this is the first draft of the solids. So I actually just merged this into the engine yesterday. If you're confused about why you saw that I already had ImGui images. I had a naive way of doing this, and I'm trying to now do a bit better. But why can't I cast you to an ImTexture 2D? What else was I missing here? My UI image. Gets the GUI handle, which is the ImTexture ID. Which is an eye texture view. I don't know what I'm missing here. I know! Hi, Detwolf. Welcome back. I was explaining to everyone else on the stream, but my toddler went to the ER like 2 weeks ago and he was fine. He wasn't heard it all. It turned out to just be something called toxic synovitis, which sounds scary, but he wasn't able to walk, which is why we brought him to the urgent care. And then urgent care said, let's do an x-ray. And then he looked at the x-ray and said, oh, we think your toddler has a hip infection, so you have to go to the ER right now. It turns out he did not have a hip infection. We don't know what was going on with the x-ray because they did new x-rays at the ER and said he was perfectly fine. But all of that took like from 6 o'clock p.m. until basically 6 o'clock a.m. the next day. And this was on a Wednesday. And so that one upset has disrupted my life so much. And it took me at least 5 days to get caught up on sleep. And then going into this last week, I chose to work overtime because I was working on something that held my attention and I was also super, super involved. So I was working on that. But finally, life is quiet and calm and I get some time to work on the engine again. But welcome back. So, Dat Wolf, since last stream, we've got to figure out how to stream properly because the people that joined earlier aren't going to want to watch me go over what I did before for everyone else. But this is our game. My husband came back onto the project because he had decided he wasn't going to work on the engine anymore because he got burnt out. But he implemented in like a fever dream of 3 days all of the networking code that I need for the game. So you can create a single player game or host a up to 4-player multiplayer game, which a lot of that is wired up, but actually not just plugged into the UI yet. So I have a log here. I have some cards here. This is just dummy data right here. And then I've got my viewport. But we're into it now. So now I need to figure out why. Oh, this is why I can't cast from an eye texture view. No, it's not even an eye texture view at this point. It's exactly what it's an eye device. Okay, I'm gonna try to cast to an eye device object, but I don't deal with void pointers very often. My husband's suggestion was a good one, which was just make it a void pointer because we don't want to leak diligent types into the scene, into our graphics interface layer, which diligent being the backend library that we use. So make it a void pointer, but I don't know how to. Okay, can't convert from, I'm assuming this is the void pointers. Oh, this is an easy problem, you guys. This is just telling me that I didn't set the index. So our texture view holds an ID, which is an asset ID, and an index. So I need to pass the index. What if that was all it was and it works? Oh, thank you. Well, I haven't seen ImGui be blue in a really long time, but I can tell you about what you can do to control what it looks like. So if you aren't at the place where you're starting to get images, because I'm eventually going to throw away all of this, like, all of the style, like, you won't see basically anything ImGui at all. We're going to have our own custom font, and then everything will be images. But what you can do is you can, let's find it. Get a pointer or a reference to the ImGui style object, and then you can say things like, we do our colors here, but you can just say like style.color. So I always have to look up how to do it, but let's see. So we have, okay, yeah, style dot, with capital colors. And then ImGui has all of these different like listings of control types and things. And so you can just say, like, set up your own color scheme. And then specifically for most of our windows, we have no title bar, which might be what you're talking about. And you can set that in when you actually go and create the window. So we have no title bar as window flags, no title bar, no resize, and no move. I don't think resize and move have any kind of visual quality to them. It's just if you can resize or move the window. But try no title bar and see if that does what you need. Hi, Kurt Cobain. Yeah, no problem. So I normally have music playing, so I should probably get rid of this. I normally have music playing, but I tried to start, this is my second time streaming to YouTube. I tried to click manage stream to start a new one, but I didn't want to start streaming yet. And then I realized I somehow hit the go button before I was ready. And I can't both stream and get my music adjusted at the same time. Oh, so I don't use Maya or ZBrush because I started with Blender, and then once you get over like the crazy learning curve that is Blender sculpting and just Blender in general, I find it like it's pretty, there's so many tutorials and stuff you can just kind of figure out what you need to figure out. But I'm a huge fan of Substance Painter. If you guys don't know Substance Painter, it is, I can show it to you. It's super cool. So I remember saying this in last stream. So Detwolf, you probably remember, but Adobe bought Allegorithmic, which was the company that made Substance Painter a couple of years ago, maybe 2023. And now if you want to use Substance Painter, you would think that you would have to pay for their $20 a month license fee that Adobe does, because Adobe loves to not let you own the software you buy from them. But because Allegorithmic was a good company, they had a lifetime purchase guarantee. So if you purchase, they want to honor that. So on Steam, it's expensive, but you can buy a lifetime membership of Substance Painter. Oh no, did they take it away? If you hadn't already, if you're not grandfathered in, oh my god. No. What I was gonna say, for $150, I bought a Substance Painter that it's only getting maintenance releases, so it's like EOL'd, but it's from 2023. And you never have, oh, here it is, okay. Oh. Well, I don't know exactly what they have going on, but I bought the 2023 Substance Painter, which does not entitle me to free upgrades, but I don't have to pay Adobe's monthly licensing fee. And I highly recommend doing that. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was talking to Detwolf, Kurt Cobain. Detwolf is my OG ride or die. Anyway, Substance Painter is really, really good. And you don't have to pay for Adobe's $225 monthly licensing fee if you pay $150, which pays for itself in like a year. So my workflow for 3D modeling or for asset generation is make the thing in Blender, create a high poly version and a low poly version, and then in Substance Painter you can load in the low poly version of the mesh and then bake the mesh maps for the high poly version onto the low poly version, and then I paint in Substance Painter, then I export the textures and the mesh and the animations into our game engine, and then we have conversion code using ASIMP for the meshes and for the animations, and then textures, pretty straightforward. But I really recommend Blender. I've never used Maya. Yeah, I agree with it. Never trust Adobe. I feel like when I was 13 or 14, I remember pirating Maya and then trying to learn it. But this was, I feel like, back in the day when the internet was new and I couldn't figure out how to do it. But I'm very, very pro Blender. Blender is free. Blender, I'm amazed that Blender is free. It's so good. And I'm not advanced enough at asset creation to need anything that Blender can't provide. What does Maya give you that Blender? Oh, I did. Yeah, I did get my staff to work properly. So the problem, if I'm remembering correctly, let's see, I'll show it to you. I think the problem was that my point light, that looks so nice now. My point light was like way over here or something. Let's see. Never mind the hand, but I think it was looking like this or something, and I couldn't figure out why my normals weren't working correctly, but it was just because my light was screwed up. And then I moved the light like 3 minutes after the stream ended. I wanted you to come back, but I didn't know how to find you again. Yeah, it was looking like this, and I didn't understand what was happening, but it was just because my light needed to be rotated just a little bit. Okay, I have completely diverged. Oh, Cal made a widget for us that lets you control the rotation and the scale, which is super cool. Okay, so back to what I was doing. Let me try to zoom in a little bit. Don't need Blender open right now. Okay, you still aren't building. Cannot convert from a void pointer to an ImTexture2D. Conversion loses qualifiers. Ha. Now you don't lose qualifiers. Okay, well, does anyone know why this is telling me that I can't? Okay, see when you get back, Kurt Cobain. Does anyone know what this is telling me? So I don't ever work with void pointers because they're confusing to me. But it's a pointer to anything. I get that. And you can cast it. So provided that you have the right, you're pointing to an object that has a compatible interface with whatever you're trying to cast it to, you can just cast it and it should just work. And underneath the hood, get texture view is an I device object pointer, and here in the code that was working, I say, where is it? So this is an iDevice handle pointer, or iDevice object pointer, and I'm casting it here to an ImTexture ID. And now the only difference between what I'm doing there and what I'm doing here is that there's a void pointer in between. So good texture view. Okay, let's do some Googling here. This will be another leveling up moment for me, because as soon as I okay, so cast ImGui, or just cast void pointer. Let's just look at what to do. Should I use static cast or reinterpret cast? Oh, you can. Oh, Okay, I wonder if before I cast this to an ImTexture ID, what I'm reading is like, it's possible it just doesn't know how to convert it. So what I want to try to, I don't like the loses qualifiers thing. I don't get that because this was const qualified. And this is a const void pointer. But what I'm going to try to do, let's rebuild just to make sure that I did that and that wasn't the only problem. Yeah. What I'm going to try to do, because we're going 2 jumps here, we're going from iDeviceObject pointer to void pointer, and then we're not going back to iDeviceObject, we're going right to ImTexture ID. I don't see why, but it's possible that could be the problem. So instead, I'm going to try to cast my iDeviceObject to an ImTexture ID before casting it to a void pointer. Okay, so let's do star. So at this point it's going to be an iDeviceObject. So we're just going to do it for 1 as a proof of concept. So auto star, let's call it a device object PTR. Okay, and then let's make sure that, is that a void? Oh, it's already a void pointer at this point, isn't it? Okay, let's go to the texture buffer resource just to make sure. Maybe I want to be doing this there. Yeah, here is where I want to do it. This is not going to be the way that I do it, because I don't want you to roll. I don't understand. I'm missing the boat somewhere, because it doesn't make any sense that casting it to something else and then casting it to void pointer would change the underlying data at all. I made a mobile game like 10 years ago in Unity, and it was called Buzzkill, and it was I was really proud of it. And I think I got like 11 downloads or something on Google Play Store, but I actually like made it, released it, and I don't think that you can find it anymore. But my tagline, so did you ever have a Nintendo Switch? I think it was a Switch where you could play, no, it was oh my god, I think it was a DS. Did you ever have a Nintendo DS where you can, like, I don't remember what game, I can't remember if it was Switch or DS, but there was a mini game on one of the Mario games. I don't remember which one, but you had a slingshot and there were bombs and little toads were coming down with parachutes. I don't remember what you were slingshotting, but there were bombs floating down on parachutes, and you had to slingshot something into the bombs as they're like slowly drifting down. So you have to blow them up before they get to the ground. And that was the most fun game I ever played. So I made a... Oh, see you, Luca. Thank you. Oh, awesome. Good to hear. Well, anyway, Det Wolf, it was like a slingshot game where you're like kind of like Brick Breaker in slow motion. So there were like things slowly drifting down and they'd come faster, and you had to pop them with your slingshot. But to try to not be a direct clone of the Bomb and Toad game, I made it bees, like hornets or what you are coming down to get your flowers, And I thought that was awesome, but I called it Buzzkill because I thought that was super clever, and it was. I stand by that. But my slogan was join the buzz and kill some bees. It was also clever, but apparently people hate bee damage, any harm, even joking or cartoon harm and violence towards bees, because bees are holding the planet together. So that wasn't very well received. Have you made any mobile games? It was. I should find it somewhere. Texture ID. Yeah. Unity is really nice. It's fun to learn. But we switched away from Unity back because we had gotten very far on a networked game, and then I don't remember if it was eNet or what was the... It wasn't eNet. Whatever Unity was using in like 2015-ish. 2018-ish. No, maybe 2018. They end-of-lifed one of their third-party networking protocols, and that's what we were using, and that was the last straw for my husband. Okay, so what I'm trying here is I'm going to cast the iDevice object pointer to an ImTextureID pointer. It could be that the const is screwing everything up. That would be a bummer. But I'm going to cast it to a const ImTextureID, and then I'm going to cast that to a void pointer. And everything that I know about void pointers says so this is like a no-op. This does absolutely nothing. But I'm going to try it anyway. Maybe this will tell me. Conversion from integral type to pointer type. What did I do like literally yesterday that I'm forgetting about now? Where are you? There you are. Okay. I feel like I'm going crazy. Maybe it's all the const. Yeah, this is literally an iDevice object pointer. I'm gonna go take the const out of everything because this is an ImTextureID. There's casting to the void pointer might be screwing it up, but I'm going to take all the const out of the equation and see if that's just what it's upset about. Yeah, okay, first let's just put it right here because that's almost the same code that I had. Okay, oh, maybe you're just mad at the auto star. I know you don't need the pointer when you're doing auto. I know you need a reference. You don't need the pointer because it's understood. It's part of the type, unlike reference, but I like to do it because it makes it easier for me to follow what I'm doing. Okay, so now I'm wondering if it was happy with this. Then let's just, I think that's our ticket, Deadwolf. I think we just have to get rid of all the consts, which is kind of a bummer because it's everywhere. I'm going to commit prior to removing const. Now, let's just have no consts anywhere. Okay. Oh, you're the stub. You're not the stub. Okay. Pull up to here. Doubt if I'm suffering from severe FOMO right now because the tech Twitter has exploded with like the dark fantasy. It's like someone holding a staff and like wizard hands, like all the retro fantasy games stuff is now blowing up all over tech Twitter, and someone's like, oh, someone should just make a game. And what they don't realize is like, I've been working on this for at least the shader since last year to try to make this exact dark fantasy vibe, and I'm so slow. It's been taking me like the hour and a half of this stream just to try to get ImGui textures going, and I'm probably going to be working on this for the next like 6 years, and the wave of like the hype for dark fantasy is going to come. There's going to be like 40 games made, and I'm going to miss it unless I get my butt in gear. So I have severe FOMO, which is the downside of writing your own game engine. Everything takes you a million years. But the upside is you have fun. It's all about the friends you make along the way and the static casts you cast along the way. Oh. Okay, let's carry on here. Getting rid of the consts to see if it's some kind of const cast problem, which is likely. Okay. I think that's all of them. No const. Okay, ImGui image static cast, texture ID, graphics get texture view. Let's try that. Thank you, Datwolf, you're right. And the thing that's so worth it about making your own engine is you can debug everything because you know exactly where things are. And the only problem that I run into is when Cal's written something that I don't understand what he did. And I have to try to debug it. But generally it's like, okay, I don't have to file a support ticket on Unity or Unreal and pray that it gets enough upvotes that somebody fixes it in the next 4 releases from now. You can just go learn and fix it yourself, and that is really, really handy. Okay, we're getting there. I think it was just stupid consts. One day I'll be a proper const. I'll have good const hygiene and won't be afraid of const. I was just bragging to my husband in the kitchen literally this evening that I totally understand const. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll get rid of the const here. Yeah, let's get rid of you. Uh-oh, I think it's gonna work. Okay, so if it does work, then what we're expecting to see is the diffuse map for the bony in where. It's going to be in the sample UI. Probably just like right in the front, pushing. I don't even know if. So it's going to be like the left panel, the log panel, and the scene selector panel. It's going to be somewhere in there. When in doubt, just don't const. It's terrible advice. Hey! Dat Wolf, it's because you have always believed in me. That's how we got it going. Look at that. Nice. Okay. Then we can get rid of that. So to actually use this in the game, we just have to we have to get a pointer to graphics, get the asset ID. Let's see, let's clean this sucker up. But I want to know why I can cast it as just a void pointer, but why can't I cast it as a const void pointer? Okay, that's looking good. Oh, but now, you know what I want to try? I want to see if this works with... Let's see, what would that index be? Let's go to pass back, and I want to see if I can get the screen rendering in there just as a curiosity. I should test that anyway. Okay, you are going to be into render post-process in the post-process sync buffer. And what index are we going to be? So post-process noise. Let's just try that. Okay, so let's try NC texture view type. Oh. But you're a post-process sync. Let's go purpose. What are you actually? Okay, I did not wire you up, so let's go to NC Graphics Impl again and try color target main is 2. We're going to go to sample UI. So we're going to get the texture view type is color sync, and you are going to be 2. Let's try that. Let's try one. Hey, that's so cool. Oh, that was okay. That really is easy if that's all it takes to render. So this is my normals pass. And I think that was actually much easier than trying to build my game around an empty space like I did here. So this is literally just, this whole viewport is just not ImGui. So it actually would be much easier, because then I can take advantage of a table, an ImGui table, if I just have one of the panels be rendered to. Now I'm curious because I want to get the main color, which must be 0. Oh yeah, so my husband actually wrote the first round of our physics engine by himself, which is outstanding to me. But then we are going for a game that would have been really fun. It was just, oh, look at that. Out of scope for a 2-person team, but it was going to be like a Red Bull has soapbox derby racing. And I thought it would be incredibly fun, and it would be. We just can't make it with 2 people, but incredibly fun to be able to have a designer where you have like a 30-second draft, like 30 seconds to make, using like junkyard parts, a soapbox car, and then you have to race it down the hill and things can like fly off, and every round of the game you can like add more parts. But because of that, we couldn't use the physics engine he wrote. My shadows look so bad, I need to fix them. We couldn't use the physics engine he wrote because he didn't want to write wheel physics, because there's a lot to wheel physics. So we ended up cutting over to using Jolt so that we can get vehicle physics. And I think that was actually the project that got him so burnt out, because he put so much into that. And I was supposed to be the one kind of like pioneering and doing like leading the game dev, and it just got to be, we couldn't figure out a couple things, and I gave up on that one, and most of that work went unused. I think it just crushed him, but he's been helping me with the networking for this. This is really, really cool. But yeah, the physics work really well. If you're interested, you should look up Jolt Physics. I think they were the physics engine in Horizon Zero Dawn, if I remember correctly. Okay, so that's really easy to get the... If it was that easy, I should just figure out how to wire up the post-process pass. So let's look at post-process. Not property, but is it a sync? Pass resource signature. Utility. Oh, I just do this. Post process, and then graphics impl 2. Get texture view. Where did I have a really toxic trait of putting new members to like enums and stuff in the middle. I don't know why I do it. Whenever I add a new method to a class, I put the method in the middle of all the other methods. It's really a weird thing to do. I've been trying to catch myself. Okay, so then post-process should go at the end like a normal person would do it. Post-process, so then we just have to redirect to get post-process sync resource. I think that might just work. So then let's go back to the sample and get, I think it was 3 was the index. It might be, I'm going to start with 2. This is way more adaptable going this approach, just getting the ID and then you can do whatever you want with it, than like what I had done before, which was create a wrapper class for every ImGui type. Okay, why are you upset about that? Per pass. Oh. Oh. You need an index. Why? What do you look like under the hood again? Oh yeah, because you're an array. That's what I think I want. Oh, but now I need to pass a sub-resource. I'm gonna try to hack this in here, and then if it works, I'll add the sub-resource index. Let's say at 2, and then this should be 0. I think that's maybe 0 and 2. So the post process sync resource is actually an array of textures for every post process image that I have. I had to do it that way for some reason. I don't remember what it was now. And so it's either I want to get the 0th array. I can't remember how I indexed it. If it was the 0th array has all the views, but I think it's, if I had like 5 post-process images, I think I'd have 5 sync resources, each with 1 item in there. Oh, look at that. Yeah. That is so exciting. Thanks, Tatwolf. Well, thanks for joining. I'm actually probably going to wrap it up here anyway. But I'm going to try to stream weekly now that chaos has ceased. But thanks for joining. It was good to chat with you again. Alright, y'all. I have had some success, so I'm going to clean this up and post for review, but I'm going to do that off stream and then probably wind down for bed here. But thanks for watching, everybody.